Hello everyone and welcome to Fresh Mastered Channel. Today we are going to have some story from Reddit. But before we start, don't forget to subscribe, like the video if you enjoyed it, and leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel.
You know, it's like my parents only care about my sister. It's always my sister this and my sister that. But then they decided to miss one of the biggest days of my life. Let me tell you what I did that day. Sometimes I can't help but wonder why my parents adopted me, you know? And why did I end up with parents like them? I never really felt welcome at home because my sister never wanted me around. Mom and Dad were always trying to please her, doing whatever she said. It's pretty clear where this is going, right? When I was 3, I was in a car accident with my biological parents, and sadly, they both passed away on the spot. I ended up in the hospital for almost a year. The nurses told me I was in a coma for 3 months, and then I had severe seizures for 8 months because of the accident. It was tough, and I didn't think I'd ever get over it. I blamed myself for what happened to my parents during that time. After I got out of the hospital, a psychologist helped me mentally recover. But you know, I had nowhere else to go since I didn't know anyone other than my parents. They took me to an orphanage out of town, saying it would be better for me to have some peace and quiet. Avoiding cars would definitely speed up my recovery. 2 years later, I got adopted by my new parents, who happened to be Amba's parents. They were informed about my past and asked if my screaming at night and random breakdowns would be a problem for them. But they were determined to give me the best life and make up for the tough times of the last 2 to 3 years. Finally, we went home. Honestly, I wasn't really ready for a new family because I was still mourning my parents' death. But their love and affection helped me cope with the feeling of being alone in the world. The first 2 years with my new family are the best memories I have. I felt safe at home, but my sister started distancing herself from me and complaining about petty things I did. I thought it was just typical sibling behavior, you know, acting like they hate you but actually adoring you. But in my case, it was different. Amber felt like I had taken everything from her and was jealous of the attention I got. I needed that attention, though, because I was not okay at all. My mental health required someone strong by my side to help me overcome all that I had been through. But she couldn't understand because she hadn't been through what I experienced, and she was just a kid. Things changed when I started middle school. My parents started acting differently, not giving me the same attention as before. I thought it was because I was growing up and learning to be more independent, but it seemed like my sister was emotionally manipulating them. She wasn't doing well in school, and they started giving me more attention instead. Since they were worried about me getting injured, they didn't let me play soccer and only allowed some racket sports in secondary school. I had a crush on this girl who happened to be Amba's best friend. Little did I know that my feelings for her would create a bigger rift between me and my sister. She felt like I came into her life and took away everyone who mattered to her. She stopped making friends after my girlfriend and I started dating. After a few months, I broke up with my girlfriend because my PTSD was resurfacing, and I was becoming violent. I started attending AA meetings, and my parents got me a therapist, but they weren't really there for me. Every time I went to see the therapist, my sister would come up with some excuse to make them miss my appointments. But I slowly started feeling better. And this was about 3 months before my high school graduation. On the big day, I dressed up in a fancy suit my parents got for me. While waiting for my parents to drive me to school, I heard a noise from upstairs to downstairs. I turned and saw Amber lying on the floor with blood on her forehead. I freaked out and called for Mom and Dad to come down quickly. They rushed down, worried about Amber. Thankfully, she didn't pass out. When asked what happened, Amber said that Jonathan pushed her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Did they just fail me? She accused me of pushing her down the stairs on my special day. Why on earth would I do that? Mom and Dad took Amber to the hospital and left me with money for a cab or Uber to go to school alone. I thought about running away, but that wouldn't solve anything and would only worry my parents. So I ended up attending my graduation alone without Mom. On that day without Dad, I missed my biological parents more than ever. I wish they could be there with me as I was about to graduate and move on to college. After graduation, I got invited to my friend's party. But I couldn't go because I knew my parents were expecting me home after what happened to my sister earlier. When I got home, I found my mom and dad in the living room. I sat down facing them, and they started talking to me. They understood that I've been through a lot and might still be dealing with mental distress, but they scolded me for something I didn't even do. What happened to my sister? It felt so unfair to be blamed for it. Losing my parents was already cruel, and now I was being forced to admit to something false. Since that day, Amber and I grew apart. I wanted to stay away from her as much as possible because she seemed determined to turn my parents against me and make them regret adopting me. I applied for college, and when I told my parents, they seemed proud. But later they said they couldn't afford to pay for my tuition. It was like they were changing from caring people into heartless monsters because of my sister's influence. I sent out sponsorship letters to different places, and luckily a local bank offered me financial assistance. In college, I met my future wife and her brother, Shu Yang. Shu Yang became a close friend after I started dating his sister. He was really skilled with computers. Once I went to college, I didn't hear much from him, and I guess it felt like they were glad to have me out of their lives for a bit. My college graduation was coming up in a month, and I wanted my family there. But then, my mom called and said they couldn't make it because my sister got robbed and she was too scared to travel or be left alone. My mom said that Amber needed them more than I did. It hurt to hear that. Throughout my life, they've missed important events and appointments because of Amber. Every time I needed them, it was always about Amber. Amber this and Amber that. I know she's their biological child, but they became my parents too when they adopted me. So it felt selfish to say Amber needed them more than I did. I didn't need all of them to come. At least one of them could have stayed with Amber, and the other could have shared my happiness at graduation. But nope, they didn't do that because their precious Amber was apparently more important than some random orphan like me. I decided to let it all go and move on with my life. 9 years after graduation, I proposed to my girlfriend, and she said yes. I went back home for dinner to share the big news about my wedding. Everyone seemed happy for me, except my sister Amber. She had this intense, jealous look, like she wanted to swallow me whole. I couldn't figure out why she was jealous, even though she had our parents all to herself. Maybe she wanted to be like me or something. Who knows? Anyway, she gave me this envious look, then stormed off to her room without saying anything. The rest of us looked at each other, wondering if something was said wrong, but we couldn't remember anything. Wedding preparations started, and Amber refused to be a part of it. She claimed to be too busy with work and said she had to stay at the company while they were gone for the wedding. She told our parents to do whatever they needed to do without her. Honestly, I really wanted my parents to be there for my special day. I was terrified that Amber would emotionally manipulate them into not coming. So I went to her room, had a talk with her, and asked her to let me have our parents for my wedding, because it meant the world to me. She gave me this evil smirk when she looked at me. I tried talking to Mom and Dad about it, but they said I shouldn't worry because my sister doesn't mean to hurt me. So the wedding day finally arrived. I looked for Dad, but he was nowhere to be found in the house. I suspected right away that Amber was up to something, and it didn't surprise me that she was behind my parents not showing up for my wedding. Later, I got a voicemail from Dad saying they couldn't make it because of a car accident involving Amber. I was worried at first, but it turned out to be part of Amber's plan to keep them away. I missed my biological parents even more that day. I wanted them to see how I was being treated by my so-called parents. I had my wedding without my family there. My wife and Shu Yang kept asking where my parents were, but I felt embarrassed to tell my in-laws that my family ditched me on my own wedding day. Despite feeling so disappointed that they chose Amber over me, I didn't let it ruin my day. It was my wedding, and I deserved nothing but happiness. After the wedding, we went off for our honeymoon. I haven't felt that genuinely happy since my parents passed away. My wife just made me so happy, and I finally felt complete. I realized she was the missing piece in my life, and she didn't mind when I woke up from nightmares in the middle of the night. Instead, she comforted me and reassured me that she was right there with me. I couldn't feel safer. I used to think I needed a therapist, but all I really needed was her, just her. During our honeymoon, Shu Zhang called and offered to edit our wedding pictures for free. I couldn't say no to such a generous offer, so I gave him the go-ahead. We spent about 3 amazing weeks on our honeymoon, not even thinking about my family back home. My focus was solely on having the best time with my new wife. After the honeymoon, we went back home and got back to work. We started renting a small apartment to save up for a house. Then my brother-in-law came by to show me the edited pictures. I didn't want to agree with him, he's a bit crazy. But I had no idea that his idea of editing the pictures meant adding my parents' pictures to make it look like they were there at the wedding. He was known for being really skilled with computers, but using Photoshop to add my parents to the wedding pictures was just not right. Then he came up with a plan. If I posted those pictures, he said my sister would die. The idea of showing my parents at the wedding and leaving her out made me smile. So I went along with Shujang's plan. I posted the pictures on social media, and they got lots of likes and comments. But the ones I was really waiting for were from Amber, Mom, or Dad. The next day I got a ton of calls and messages from home. They had seen the pictures of the wedding. When I answered the phone, I could feel the anger in my parents' voices. They were furious. They told me to never come back to their house because what I did was unethical and shameless. I couldn't understand why they were so upset about me posting my wedding pictures with them in it. Was it really that bad that they had to curse me out? Mom said that Amber hadn't stopped crying over it. She felt left out and wanted me to take down the videos and pictures right away. But I refused. I told them, "Tell me what you want and I'll give it to you." "Just take down that nonsense you posted," my dad said angrily, making it clear he regretted ever giving me a home. I couldn't help but laugh at him and responded, "Hey, listen, Dad, don't pat yourself on the back for giving me a home. All you provided was a roof over my head, which I already had at the orphanage. Thanks for the education, but besides that, you made me miss my parents even more every day. You were too focused on your selfish daughter and didn't care about anyone else. And there's nothing that can make up for my parents missing my big wedding." He didn't say anything on the other end of the line. I then added, "By the way, you might want to read your daughter's diary and learn the real truth about her behavior on all my special days. Don't be surprised, like they say. An apple doesn't fall far from the tree. She put me through a lot, and all you did was take her side every time. Do you have any idea how worthless and insignificant that made me feel? I think the only way to make it up to me is by arranging a second wedding that you'll all attend, and we'll take pictures like one big happy family. Then, I'll take down all the other photos and videos." My parents couldn't believe what I just told them. They were actually considering arranging a whole wedding just to please my sister. But then they demanded to see Amba's diary, and were shocked to read about all the misfortunes she had caused on my special days. She may have looked innocent, but she wasn't as innocent as they thought. Turns out she was jealous of me, thinking I took everything that belonged to her, and that jealousy consumed her completely until she lost control. If it wasn't for my brother-in-law, I'd probably still be feeling sorry for myself because of how my family treated me. I think Jonathan's sister's actions are not just vile, they're treacherous for my entire life. It messed up my upbringing and everything, all because she wanted all the attention from our parents, and missing my wedding was the last straw. Guys, let me know what you think of this story. Leave your comments below and let's discuss it. If any of you have had a sibling like this, share your experience with me.